Welcome to the Live Free, Love Life podcast, where we discuss how to create more freedom so we can love our lives no matter what we're going through.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to today's episode of Live Free, Love Life. I am your host, Mindy Neal, and today we're going to be talking about something that is super important when it comes to creating freedom, breaking free from all the things that are holding us back. And that thing that we're going to talk about is state. So, what do I mean by state? It is the overall way that you feel in your body. That is not the scientific definition. That's just the easy definition. It's how you feel in your body. You have a physical state, a mental state, an emotional state, a spiritual state, and all of them are interconnected. It's not like there's only one or the other. There's usually a lot of things from each of those four categories that are all playing a role and creating your overall state. Now, here's why this is so important. I like to think of state as think of up in your brain you have a bunch of thought factories, and each factory is specialized. It only creates certain kinds of thoughts. So, for example, there is a catastrophizing thought factory, and that thought factory creates all of the catastrophizing about the future, all the things that could go wrong, all of the things that are going to be horrible. That's the only kinds of thoughts that that thought factory produces. Now, there are other thought factories. There are ones that, let's say it's the belief in self thought factory. And in this factory are all the thoughts that believe that you can do it, that really truly believe that you are as amazing as you are. And the thoughts that come out of that factory are the ones that are going to help you to go after your goals, to go after your dreams, to do all the amazing things you want to in the world. Whereas the catastrophizing thoughts from the catastrophizing thought factory, they're not going to help with that so much. Those are going to have you stuck and frozen and not taking action because you're thinking of all the things that could go wrong. Now, your state is what opens the doors. Maybe you could think of them like keys. They open or close the doors of each of the thought factories. And you have experience with this, even if you have never thought about it before. Think about the thoughts that are available to you when you are exhausted and hangry. They are not the same thoughts available to you as when you are feeling amazing in your body. How your physical body feels, your physical state is going to open the doors of some thought factories, and it is going to close the doors of other thought factories. So when it comes to thought work, I talk about your thoughts a lot on this program because most of the time, what is shackling us is our own thoughts. It truly is, because our reality is shaped by our mind. It is not the actual reality. We create our own reality with our thinking. So most of our shackles come from our mind. So when it comes to the thoughts available in your mind, we cannot control what our brain offers us. Our brain just offers us 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day over and over, mostly on repeat, but we cannot control the thoughts our brain offers. We can choose what to do with the thoughts when our brain offers it. We can also influence much more than we think we can the thoughts that are available to us based on our state. So some of you are trying to make your brain think different things. Maybe you don't want to think this, or you do want to think this, and you're trying to control it at that level. What I would love to share with you is that it is often much easier, rather than controlling it on the level of what thoughts are available, we control it on the level of state. Because if you can close down all the doors of the unhelpful thought factories and you can open the doors of the super helpful thought factories, then you are not controlling, but highly influencing the thoughts that are running through your head. And that makes everything else so much easier. Because if all the thoughts running through your head are thoughts that help you do whatever it is you're trying to do, then you have already made your job 1,000 times easier. It is a much easier way to approach the problem. So state is super important, and we want to be able to take responsibility for our state. So this is so important that we are going to talk about it over the next several weeks. Next week, I'm going to go more into your morning routine, creating your state for the day on purpose to be able to have the best day ever, every single day. Then we're going to go into more detail on your physical state, your mental and emotional state, and then your spiritual state. Because this topic is so important, you can give yourself so much freedom to be who you want to be and do what you want to do just by taking responsibility for your state. So let's talk about a few more examples. When you are exhausted and hangry, like we talked about before, it becomes exponentially harder to respond patiently and compassionately to your partner or your children. The irritability and lack of impulse control hijack your usual thoughtful, empathetic responses. If you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed about an upcoming deadline, this is your mental and emotional state. Mental and emotional generally go together because thoughts create emotions. So I usually talk about them together, and we will be in the next few weeks as well. So if you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed about an upcoming deadline, your brain is more likely to catastrophize and generate a stream of worried, self-doubting thoughts. This in turn saps your energy and motivation, making it harder to take constructive action. On the flip side, when you are in a state of flow, deeply engaged, energized, and present, you are able to tap into your highest creative and intellectual capacities. Time seems to slow down, and you find yourself effortlessly immersed in the task at hand. So you can see how your state can really deeply impact how your day goes. So it's day to day. It can deeply impact how you go after your goals and your dreams, how you create the life that you want to be living, how you create the relationships that you want to be in. So, how do we take responsibility for our state? Step number one is understand your unique state triggers and patterns. You must get intimately familiar with the specific factors that tend to knock you off center. What physical and emotional states do you most commonly find yourself in? What are the environmental, dietary, or lifestyle factors that tend to precede those states? Pay close attention to the connections between your body, your mind, and your external circumstances. So, for example, you might notice that when you don't get enough sleep, your capacity for patience and clear headed thinking plummets, or that you reliably feel more upbeat and energized when you've spent time in nature. Identifying these patterns is a key to developing targeted interventions. Step number two, cultivate state awareness in the moment. Once you have a handle on your state tendencies, the next step is to develop real time awareness of how you're showing up. This means regularly pausing to check in with yourself, noticing your breathing, your muscle tension, your emotional and cognitive state. What thoughts and impulses are available to you right now? How is your body feeling? The more you can tune in to the nuances of your moment to moment experience, the more empowered you'll be to make conscious choices about how to respond. Step number three, actively manage and optimize your state. So let's talk about these are just a few ideas. There are probably thousands, hundreds of thousands. I don't know. There are lots of ways to impact, influence, control your state. And all of these things affect people differently. So in step three, there's going to be a lot of experimenting happening. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of ideas of things that you can experiment with, but we won't know if will be helpful for you until you actually experiment with them. So the first one is breath. How many of you have heard, just take a deep breath? Your breath can change the state. This especially affects your nervous system. It can change your state in a matter of seconds. So when I say breath, it could just be taking deep breaths. It could be slowing down your breathing. It could be practicing breathing patterns like box breathing, where you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold it for 4. Could be something like that. Could be a breathing pattern. It could be doing breath work. I like to do my breath work guided. So there's lots of different experts out there. There's apps, there's programs, there's all sorts of things. I'm sure you can find things even on YouTube where someone just takes you through breath work. They do different kinds of breathing. They usually put it to music. They usually say things that are uplifting and powerful. And that can be a super powerful way to change your state. And that can be either in the morning. Next week, we're going to talk about our morning routine, how we set our state for the day. It could also be just in the middle of the day. I have an app with breathwork on it, and I think the shortest ones are only 3 minutes. I think they've got like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 25 minutes, 45 minutes. So I'll do a 45-minute or a 25-minute when I am being intentional, when I'm creating state on purpose. But there are times in the middle of the day when I need to change my state. I've gotten myself into a state that is no longer helpful for what I'm trying to do. So I could literally sit down for 3 minutes and do this one little breath work and completely change my state. So your breath, super powerful. The next one, music. I love to use music to change my state. For me, there's obviously lots of styles of music. You could use music to get into a meditative state. You could use it to get into a calm state. Usually when I use music, it is more upbeat. It is more to get myself pumped and excited for the day. I have one song that I listen to almost every day as part of my morning routine. There are also times in the middle of the day, like especially in that afternoon slump when you're just like starting to drag and you just kind of like, you notice your state is like a low vibration. You can put on one song, dance around, like get up out of your chair, dance around to it, really feel the music, and completely change your state with just one song in the middle of the day. It's awesome. The next one is movement. Moving your body can drastically impact your state. So sometimes that could be going for a walk. That is my favorite, probably in the moment, change my state is to go for a walk. As far as intentionally change my state, I do qigong every day. That helps to get energy flowing through my body so that it's not stuck or stagnant anywhere. Or exercise, doing HIIT, doing strength training. Maybe you like to go running. There are so many different ways to move your body that can change your state. Oh, another of my favorite in the moment ways to change my state with movement is shaking. You just shake your body, make sure your heels are hitting the ground. That kind of shakes out all of the stress and the overwhelm and the anxiety. It's such an awesome way to change your state in the moment very quickly. Another thing is sleep. How tired, fatigued, or exhausted you are can drastically impact your overall state. So sometimes when we're taking responsibility for our state, it looks like creating sleep routines, things that we're going to do to make sure that we get an adequate amount of sleep for our own body. And this is what I mean by experiment. Your body may need an entirely different amount of sleep than someone else's. If you are thinking that you should have a certain amount of sleep and you've never really experimented or played with it, that's not what we want to do. Let's drop all of our stories about sleep and see how much sleep you actually need to feel really good in your body. Another thing that really affects our physical state is what we are putting into our body. If you're filling your body with poison every day, that is going to drastically impact your state. And remember, our state is so important because it opens and closes the doors of all the thought factories. It could be if you are eating a diet of what we would call garbage or poison or whatever you want to call it. It's not food that is giving your body the nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins that it needs to function optimally. If you are not giving your body what it needs and you are giving it things that are harmful in some way, that is going to affect the thoughts that are available to you on a day-to-day basis. If you are struggling with thought work, it could come down to what you are putting into your body. Okay, so the next one, meditation. I'm sure if you don't meditate, I'm sure you've been told to meditate about 1,000 times. There are lots of ways to meditate, and we want to experiment to find one that works. But being able to empty out your brain and be able to just be in the quiet, so impactful when it comes to state. So even just a couple minutes of meditation can completely change your state in the middle of the day. This is also something I highly recommend in your morning routine to help set your state for the day. Meditation, super important. Other things with your body, like your posture. It is fascinating to me how putting my body in a different posture can change my state. You may have heard of like doing a Superman pose, right? You like stand up, you put your hands on your hips, you stand like a superhero. Just standing like that for a couple minutes can change your state. For me, often, if I just move my shoulders back, it makes a huge impact on my state. Your facial expressions. If you smile on purpose, that can change your state. There are actual chemical things happening in your body just smiling. It could be purposely loosening your muscles. And sometimes I don't even notice, like my hands are clenched. I especially do this when I'm trying to fall asleep. I don't know what it is. My hands are often clenched really tight, and I just purposely let them go and loosen them, and it changes my state. So it's really paying attention to your body, little teeny shifts that you can make that change your state quickly, because often we want to be doing this in the moment. Sometimes, yes, it is intentional. I mean, not sometimes. I do it intentionally every day. I try to create my state. But also, there are times that we need it in the moment, and finding things that shift your state really quickly can be super helpful. And again, the only way to know that is to experiment. The next one is nature. Just getting out in nature can drastically impact your state. And that can be spending time in nature every day, every week. It could be something you do intentionally as part of your routine because you know that when you spend a certain amount of time in nature, your thought factories run differently. Or mostly you'll notice when you haven't spent time in nature, you'll notice that you are in a different state than when you are consistently spending time in nature. It could also be in the moment. Again, it could be if you're having a terrible day, take a break and go get into nature. It can really shift your state. Sunlight, especially first thing in the morning, really impact your state. Prayer, especially we haven't really talked a ton about your spiritual state. We are not just bodies here on this planet. If we were, when we died, right? Like your body is still here, but you are not. You are a spirit in a body. And think of all the things that we do, just even on a daily basis, to feed our body. We give it water, we give it food, we give it exercise, we give it sunlight, we give it rest. We have to do things every single day to take care of our body. And our spirit is no different. If you are not consistently feeding and taking care of your spirit, that is going to affect your state. And even if you are not what you would call a religious person, you are a spiritual being having a physical experience in a physical body. If you are ignoring the spiritual part of yourself, that is going to affect your state. And we will spend a whole week talking just about this, but prayer is a really great way to help shift your spiritual state. Gratitude practice. This will also shift your spiritual as well as your mental and emotional. Any type of gratitude practice. This is something I include in my morning routine, which you'll hear about more next week. Be grateful. That can shift your state super, super quickly. And having it as part of the way you start your day can really help set up your state for a successful day ahead. The next one is physical touch, hugs, just a hand on the back or on your shoulder or on your leg. It is one of the things that can really shift us quickly. Now it depends, right? This is why we want to experiment. But I read this study about 20-second hugs once, and I don't even remember anything about the study. I just remember 20-second hugs are super helpful. So when I'm having a bad day, I will just go ask my husband or maybe one of my kids, just say, "Hey, I need a 20-second hug." And I use that to help shift my state. Your health drastically impacts your state. So we've got to start taking responsibility for our health, doing the things that are going to keep our body in a healthy state versus a state of disease or dishealth or whatever. Your health drastically affects your state. We've got to take responsibility for it. Grounding techniques, those are similar to meditation. I have a favorite one from Qigong that's awesome. Grounding can really change your state quickly. Grounding techniques I use often for if I'm going to go teach a class to hundreds of people. The state that my body will get into naturally is one of nerves, right? Because you're getting on a stage, you are literally separating yourself from the tribe, which our brains do not like. It puts us into a state of anxiousness or nervousness or panic or whatever that looks like for you. And it's totally normal. It's your brain functioning the way it's supposed to. Doing grounding, any kind of grounding technique can really help you shift so that you can show up on that stage in the way that you want to. That's just one of the ways that I use those. Here's a really easy one, sighing. This is so funny because it's so simple. Just that can shift your state. How fun is that? Cold plunges. I don't know if you've done these before. They can help shift your physical state, but also your mental and emotional state. I know a lot of people nowadays are using them for like chronic anxiety. Just doing cold plunge, shift your state. Fasting, that can really help with your hormones. It can help with other physical things, your environment, having it clean versus a messy house, or like minimal things versus cluttered, or how much empty space there is in your house, how much light is coming to your house. Your physical environment can impact your state. And again, if this is somewhere you are all the time, so maybe it's your office, maybe it's the place that you sit all day long, taking some responsibility for that space can really help shift what thoughts are available to you throughout your day. It could change just paying attention to that physical space. It could shift your state enough that you go from completely hating your job to enjoying your job. That's how powerful this state work can be. And then the last one I have on here is dancing. Now, this kind of goes under music and it kind of goes under movement, but it's really its own thing. I love to turn on an upbeat song and just dance around to it for 5 minutes. It is such a fun, easy way to shift your state. So, the key to all of this is to become a virtuoso of your own internal experience, learning which levers to pull in what combinations to unlock the optimal state for any given situation or goal. So, that was all under step number 3, which was actively manage and optimize your state. And then the last step, step 4, is to cultivate a growth mindset around state. Taking responsibility for your state is not about perfection or control. It is about developing flexibility, resilience, and self compassion. There will always be circumstances beyond our control that knock us off balance. This is part of the human experience. The art is in recognizing these moments and regulating our state as best we can, and then quickly reorienting ourselves towards our highest intentions. So let's look at a few examples of intentional state management. So again, there are times where we use this in the moment, and there are times when we use it intentionally beforehand to create our state on purpose. We're not responding or reacting to our state. We're purposely creating state. So the morning routine reframe. Many people approach their morning routine as a tedious chore, a to-do list of shoulds that they kind of dread getting through. But what if we reframed those activities not as obligations, but as powerful state shifting tools? So instead of I should exercise, we might think I'm excited to move my body and get my blood flowing because I know that puts me in the optimal state for tackling the rest of my day. Or instead of I have to meditate, it becomes I can't wait to take 20 minutes to center and ground myself so I can approach my work with clarity and focus. The key is aligning our morning rituals with the internal states we want to cultivate, whether that's energy, creativity, calm, or anything else. By tapping into our intrinsic motivation and our sense of agency, we transform a chore into an empowering, self directed journey. And as I said before, we will dive into this deeper next week because my morning routine is completely designed to create state. That is the whole entire purpose of it. So we will talk about morning routine next week, about the science, about all the things that makes it important. And then I will show you what mine looks like. And we'll just talk about some things that you might want to include in your morning routine as a way to purposely create your state for the rest of the day, which means you are purposely choosing the thought factories that will be open or closed throughout any given day so that it's so much easier for you to show up as who you want to be, to do the things that you want to do, to create the things you want to create, to truly live the life of your dreams. This is how we free ourselves from all of the things that are holding us back. Okay, and navigating emotional triggers. Let's talk about this for a sec. We've all experienced those moments when we find ourselves unexpectedly triggered by something a loved one says or does. In the heat of the moment, it can feel like we have no control over our angry, hurt, or defensive reactions. But with these state management skills, as we practice this, we can learn to short circuit that reactive pattern. As soon as we notice those physiological signs of emotional escalation, like your quicker breathing, muscle tension, racing thoughts, we can consciously intervene. We might take a few deep breaths, go for a short walk, or listen to a calming playlist. The goal is to quickly shift our state from reactivity to receptivity so we can respond rather than reflexively lash out. Over time, this practice of state hacking can dramatically improve the quality of our relationships and our ability to navigate conflict productively. We become less at the mercy of our emotions and more able to access higher reasoning faculties. We can also use this to enhance focus and flow. We've all had those magical moments of deep engagement and creative flow when time seems to slow down, distractions fade away, and we become fully immersed in the task at hand. These states of optimal performance don't happen by accident. They're the result of intentionally curating the right physiological and psychological conditions. In other words, creating state. Perhaps it's lighting some soothing incense, putting on your flow playlist, and setting a timer to commit to focused, undistracted work for a set period. Or maybe it's taking a brisk walk outside to invigorate your mind and body before settling in for a creative sprint. The specific rituals will be unique to each person, but the underlying principle is the same: using state management to unlock your highest capabilities. Over time, you will start to recognize the unique combinations of factors that most reliably catalyze your state of flow. As you become more adept at inducing these conditions, you'll find your productivity, focus, and innovative capacity steadily increasing. Another common challenge that state management can help with is maintaining consistent energy and stamina throughout the day. Many people find themselves hitting the mid-afternoon slump where fatigue and lack of motivation set in and derail their productivity. For some of us with health issues like my Lyme disease, fatigue is always something that I deal with. It is always something that I am using state management to overcome so that I can show up and live the kind of life I want to live, even though I have this fatigue in my body. With strategic interventions, you can learn to regulate your energy levels and avoid those dreaded crashes. This might involve paying close attention to your dietary needs, ensuring you stay hydrated and get a steady supply of nutrient dense, slow burning fuel. It could also mean incorporating movement and breath work into your workday or strategically using stimulants like caffeine to give you a temporary boost when needed. The key is experimenting to find the unique combination of strategies that work best for your individual biology and lifestyle. Over time, you'll develop a toolbox of state optimizing rituals that keep you energized, focused, and operating at your best. Ultimately, the power of state management lies in the freedom it affords us. When we learn to take responsibility for our inner experience, to recognize the factors that shape our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, we gain the ability to stop being passive victims of circumstance. Instead of feeling at the mercy of our impulses, fatigue, or emotional volatility, we become the architects of our own mental, emotional, and physical landscapes. We can navigate challenges with greater equanimity, access our highest creativity and problem solving capacities, and show up as our best selves in our most important relationships. In the words of author James Clear, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. By cultivating robust, intentional state management practices, we build the internal systems that empower us to consistently perform at our peak and create the outcomes we desire. So I invite you to start experimenting. Notice the unique patterns and triggers in your own experience. Develop real-time awareness of your state and get curious about the specific levers you can pull to shift into a more optimal direction. With practice and self-compassion, you'll unlock a profound sense of freedom, agency, and possibility. After all, as Tony Robbins reminds us, the quality of your life is the quality of your state of being. So let's get to work on upgrading that state, one mindful choice at a time. Live free, love life.
Thank you for watching this episode of Live Free, Love Life. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, comment, and share. See you next time.